Good morning. Good. That's better. That's better. Now, we are in the second week of our series, The Dark Side of Christmas. I got to move my props. And I do want to say this. Before I get started, I need you to pray with me. We all know that I am the unapologetic eternal optimist, but I feel strangely heavy today and an anxiety. So, Lord God, I would ask that you take that anxiety away. Heavenly Father, I never want to be in the way of your message. I never want my life to get in the way of what you would have me say. And I never want those things of myself to be a distraction from what you want to be heard. So, Heavenly Father, I pray for an ease of spirit so that I may be used. In your name I pray. Amen. So this is the second week of our series, The Dark Side of Christmas. And for anybody who wasn't here the first week, the dark side of Christmas is this idea that Christmas isn't just all puppies and ponies for a lot of family. Christmas is a time that we get saddled under the weight of debt. Christmas is a time that we start to remember those loved ones that maybe we've lost, or those friends that maybe have moved away. And Christmas, for a lot of people, becomes something else, something other than what it was meant to be. It gets distracted from the celebration that we're supposed to have together. And last week we read from the most common account of Christmas, from Luke 2. But this week we're going to look at another story. And we're going to look at this story that's also commonly tied to Christmas, even though the events in this story could have been anywhere from like the first 40 days to maybe even 2 years after Jesus' birth. And we're going to read from Matthew 2, 1 through 12. And so listen to these interesting words from Matthew. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him." And when King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all of Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chiefs, priests, and teachers of the law, he asked them where this Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem, in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. So he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. And as soon as you find him, report to me so that I may too go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having being warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. And there are a number of things that we can focus on from this passage that would certainly kind of tie into the whole theme of our series, this Star Wars series, these common points, these long trips, these insecure kings that would eliminate newborn babies that might pose a threat to their power. Interesting astrological events, stars appearing, and warnings in dreams. And if you've never seen a Star Wars movie, none of that may make sense to you, but I have, and I am a nerd. But those two things are things that I want to kind of put a hyper focus on today. And that is the Magi and the gifts. Because this is something that impacts everybody in this room to one degree or another. But today I want to give you the gift or the gifts of freedom and permission as we talk about the weight of gold. Now, how many people growing up, and some may have to remember a little bit further back, but how many people growing up can remember when presents would start to appear underneath the tree? And if you had a sibling, how many of you really, really wanted the big one to have your name on it? You know, that if you saw these two presents, how many of you would have preferred that this one had your name on it? And you didn't even care what was in the box. You know, this could have been just a super, like a vacuum. You didn't care. It was a big box. It had to be special. Of course, when I was a kid, this was the box a cell phone came in. But that was, they were huge, weren't they? But, you know, this, when you saw this, I mean, you were salivating. I mean, you were ready for that to have your name on it, even if you had to write it on yourself. But ladies, how many years after that were you hoping for something a little smaller? That suddenly that boyfriend, that fiance might become just a little bit bigger part of your life. And isn't it crazy how that changes? That we go from desperately wanting this to desperately wanting this. And I'm going to tell you that it's okay to want this. And it's okay to want this. But for some people, even the sight of these gifts kind of brings about discomfort or maybe even a nausea. And let me explain. For some people, even the sight of these gifts brings about the stress that maybe your kids want something that you don't think you can give them. And maybe it's something that you can't afford. And maybe they don't even want that much, but you're in that space in your life where you're not sure you can do anything for them. Or maybe you can afford this, either the really expensive small one or the really expensive big one, but you know that it will be an exercise in making stuff important yet another year. And for some of you, the stress gets even more intense because you know that for either of these, you've got to do this and go like this and just hope that something will come about in your life that you'll be able to pay for these gifts. And these realities, this stress, the weight of gold is a huge part of the dark side of Christmas. And some of you are stressed out inside because we're 3 weeks-ish. Is it 3 weeks till Christmas? 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Even more anxiety, right? Less than 2 weeks. I didn't mean to send you into a spiral here. But some of you are stressed out because we're inside of 2 weeks to Christmas, and you still don't have any presents, and you might not even have any money. And like I said, the kids may not even want that much, but you might feel like you're letting them down. And some of you are just desperately wanting to make this year different, and you don't know how. We've all fallen into those ruts in finding the other things to worry about in Christmas and forgetting that true meaning. And yet for some of you, and I know that I've been in this place in different parts of my life, you feel that no matter what you get, it just might not be good enough. Maybe you're no good at that. Maybe you're not creative enough, or at least you don't feel that you are. But whether you have the money or you need the money, the weight of gold can be crushing to all of us. And the Bible, life, and even Star Wars today can help us to unravel and unpack these things. And we're going to start off a little different. And I'm going to say something that you might not often hear in these types of messages. And the message of the church has largely been spending is bad, but pro-giving is good. And so let me be the first to say that expensive gifts are not bad. In fact, we have biblical precedents to say that expensive gifts are not bad. And we talked about this even in our Idols series, that stuff is not inherently good or inherently evil. It's what we do with the stuff. And in this story that we read together, the Magi actually brought these expensive gifts and showing these expensive gifts for the birth of our King, of our Savior. And after the Magi show up where Jesus is, and if we look at the words in verse 11b, then they opened their treasures and presented him with the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And gold is the first gift that was mentioned. And we don't know how much gold was given. But we do know that, at least in today's market, a brick of gold, have you ever seen one of those heist movies and you see these stacks of bricks of gold? A brick of gold is about $325,000. Now, how many of you would just want one of those? Just one of them. You're not greedy. I'll just take one. That's it. I'm a simple person. But the reality is, even though it's $325,000 in today's market, gold was probably considered even more precious and might have even had an even higher value in the scheme of things. But frankincense was another expensive gift. And it's this aromatic resin that was obtained by cutting the bark off of certain trees. And the most popular use of frankincense was the burning of incense by priests. And it's highly valued. And then there's myrrh. And myrrh also has this pleasing aroma. And it's also made from the bark of these trees. And it's used in incense, but also perfume. However, myrrh, more frequently in the Bible, was used in association with suffering and death. Did you know that? See, myrrh wasn't just fragrant. Myrrh also has a numbing effect. And it was more commonly used with embalming. And it would help mask the stench of death. And so these Magi show up and they gave these expensive gifts in celebration of Jesus. But it is important to remember this. And this is something that was true then and it remains true today. When you're worried about what gifts you give, the meaning trumps the expense. Without question, every time. The meaning trumps the expense. And gold in the Bible is associated with this divinity and this kingship. And so the first gift the wise men give symbolized the deity of Christ. And Jesus is fully God. And then the frankincense is the wise men gave for Christ to symbolize his priesthood. There's only one place for us to turn to get to God for forgiveness. And that is in the priesthood of Christ. And then myrrh. Now here's almost an irony. As we all try to become these biblical scholars, here's an irony, and I don't know if you've caught this. Myrrh, the gift symbolizing of suffering and death, was given to our Messiah. And this was something that he was going to face. And he received this gift at this moment, but later rejects it. Do you know that the rag, the sponge, the thing that was given while Jesus was on the cross, and it was dipped in vinegar, was also dipped with myrrh? And they would give this to people sometimes on the cross. It wasn't just to Jesus. It wasn't just to create this unquenchable thirst for him, kind of cruel, giving him this vinegar instead of water. But they would actually give this to people up on the cross because of this numbing effect, and then the covering of the stench of death. And so while Jesus received this gift, he later refused it. He later refused it and rejected it because He was there for you and me. And I want you to tie that into what we had just said, and I want you to really try to say this with me. Everybody in the room, say this with me. A meaningful gift trumps an expensive gift every time. Do you believe it? Okay, my job's done. Good night, everybody. That's growing up, I didn't have a bunch. And I'm not going to belabor my childhood. I grew up in Chicago, ended up homeless, all those things. But growing up, we didn't have a bunch. And I can remember my presents quite often at Christmas, being younger. I can remember getting boxes, empty boxes. I can remember getting this, we had this giant, and gosh, it was from here to the box, it was this packing bag, and it was for large equipment and computer parts and stuff. And again, everything was bigger then. But there was these packing bags that conveniently, they were sealed up, kind of like the plastic ones now. And if you sat on one end and your brother jumped on the other, you'd fly about 15 feet across the yard. Those were our presents. There was packing foam that if you sprayed it out, it would just kind of mound up, and it was this glob of yellow. Well, it looked like something you might find in the yard, but just a little bit bigger pile. But those were our presents, and I would make things out of these odd gifts. And it was a couple years after my mom died that my stepdad started this practice, and he would come in to me and my stepbrothers and stepsisters. And he said, I got $20 for each of you. And he said, I can go out and buy you something right now. Or you can wait. And I can take you out the day after or 2 days after Christmas, and I can hand you that $20. You can buy whatever you want, and you're going to be able to buy more with that $20 because of the sales after Christmas. And so my stepdad really taught us very early the value of $1. But he didn't teach us that we had very much meaning. For him, he didn't have to worry about trying to find a gift. He didn't have to be bothered with it. He talked us into waiting till the day after and saying, knock yourself out. So meaningful gifts are always better, no matter how much or how little they cost. But here is the caution that we must hear and receive. The stress of debt is bad. And the Bible doesn't go into detail about the wise men. But most scholars suggest that these men, also called magi, were astrologers, they were scholars, they had knowledge of the Hebrew Scriptures. They may have also been Zoroastrian priests, which were known to study the stars. And they were wealthy, and I guarantee you that they didn't have to go into any debt or swipe a card to give those gifts to Jesus. And as difficult as the guilt of provision may be, the stress of debt will push you farther and farther into that dark side of Christmas. And it'll take a long time to get out. And if it's been a tough year, and you have to tell the kids that, maybe we have to just do one present per kid, or maybe we're not going to put so much of an emphasis or focus on presents this year, it's going to be difficult, but my guess is as soon as that moment's over, you're going to be just fine. You're going to be fine. Everybody's going to be cool with it, and you still can have a good Christmas. So here are 2 personal tests for you, and maybe something to think about. Number 1, if you have to swipe in order to get it, not knowing exactly how long it will take you to pay it off, don't get it. And number 2, probably even more to the point, if you still haven't paid off last year, it's time to slow down. And putting this message together, and the movie actually coming out next week. And I think we're going to see it opening night. I didn't realize it was opening night, and I agreed to go, and I'm regretting that. But how often, or I should say, how many of you watched Star Wars when you were a little kid? How many of you, and we're going to stick with the guys here, how many of you little boys just wanted two things? A lightsaber and the ability to use the Force. I mean, like right now, I'm sitting here thinking that my wife knows full well that I would be like, I'm the most awesome husband ever. I'm right, you're wrong. Yeah. And we would have totally done that. And I'm going to tell you that as an adult, given that power to Jedi mind trick people, I will go out on a limb and I will say, and I'm sure most of the guys in here will say, and my wife will agree, and she's probably grateful that I don't have this gift, because if I were a Jedi, there is 100% chance that I would use the Force inappropriately. And I believe, and I dare anybody in the room to say that they wouldn't as well. And that was just my fun part for the message. But the Magi brought gold, and you may not have any. So this Christmas, give within your means. And this principle applies to this Christmas as well as every other one to come after us, and that these things are going to help you to avoid falling into the dark side of Christmas. And there are some of you here today that you have enough money, and I'm not going to point you out. You have the money to buy everybody on your Christmas list something really nice and maybe even pay cash. And there are some of you in here today that might be able to buy something nice for a few people in your life, but it's going to be a lot tighter. There are some people in here that might be able to buy one person something nice, but they're still going to have to swipe that credit card. And there's some people that just don't know how they're going to pull any of this off in less than 2 weeks. And if there's no way on this planet that you can fulfill all of these things on people's lists, your husbands, your wives, your kids, your friends twice removed, if there's no way that you can afford it, I don't know how to belabor this point. There's so many times that I'll talk with people that are struggling, and we'll run out and try to do something nice for some families. And then we all just seem to get sucked into this spirit of Christmas. I mean, the Christmas trees and Christmas season it starts earlier and earlier. I mean, there was Christmas stuff up at Halloween this year. And I can't put that point out too much, that it's important for you not to overextend yourself, that it's important for you not to live outside of your means, that's important for you to know that you're special even if you can't give people fancy stuff. It's important to know that you're going to be loved at the end of the day, even if Christmas didn't have, I think it was, somebody told me this morning, there was a news article, and this woman was given all of her children 80 with my hands, so it's really hard for me. It's on. How about now? Now. There we go. Okay. All right. I'll tell you what. I want you to see this commercial, and many of you may have seen this, but this is a Best Buy commercial, and I really think that we all need to see this and kind of critique it together. And if you guys could play this. Now, if any of you work at Best Buy, I'm not picking it on you. But this commercial has this amazing music, this catchy slowing and inspiring. And it speaks to what we wish we could do. And we wish we could get amazing stuff for everyone that we know and that we love. But this win the holidays, that they won't just love the stuff you buy, they'll love you, is terrible. It is terrible theology, and it is a terrible message. It has nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. It has nothing to do with the celebration. And someone told me that there was this great reading, and I looked it up, and it really ties into this message. And it's titled The Crusty Sage. And it's a bit edgy, but I need you to be patient with me and hang in there. And it goes like this. Quit buying stuff that you can't afford just because it's Christmas. Oh, but it's Christmas. It's a special time of year. I know we're in debt overall, but it's Christmas, and that's only once a year. And you're an idiot. Seriously. The sage says it in love, but the sage also says in love that if you spend $150 on your kid for Christmas when you don't have $150, you're not only giving your kid a neato nano, but you're giving your kid a gift that keeps on giving. You're giving your kid the gift of foolishness surrounded by beautiful lights and the scent of pine and fudge. The gift of foolishness on display, etched in their memory. Target and Apple and Best Buy don't advertise many gifts, $30 or less. And they've ratcheted up the expectation level for Christmas. But last time I checked, your will remains free. This means that you don't have to be that idiot. Because your parents may have overspent every year as you grew up. Yes, they may have been baby boomers seeking to atone for parental guilt for one reason or another. And yes, there may have been stacks of presents under your tree. Yes, you think this was Christmas and this was the way it was supposed to be. Christmas is not supposed to be you buying stuff that you don't have the money for. And I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And if you're a dad, and feel bad because you can't spend hundreds of dollars on everybody, tell them that you don't have the money for it. And you'll still have a great Christmas. And if that makes you feel bad, man up. You're being bullied by a bunch of advertising majors. Gee, you're in debt? How did that happen? This is a mystery. Call CSI. Maybe they can help you figure out what happened. Maybe they can piece this together. Or maybe you bought a bunch of stuff. Maybe you should stop buying stuff. Maybe Christmas isn't special at all to you. Maybe it's just the latest excuse to overspend. Okay, we're in debt, and yeah, we did buy a $1,200 TV, but it's not that simple. No, it is that simple. But everyone at my kids' school gets tons of expensive gifts, like 360s and Wii's and stuff like that. And you're still in debt. Well, yes, it's not that simple. But yes, it is that simple. It's not realistic to only spend $20 a person in this day and age. Why? It should be just that simple. If you don't have the money for it, you just don't buy it. Don't act like your kid needs an iPod. It has nothing to do with their needs. Or even your kid, really. It has everything to do with you, your desire to have some kind of perfect Christmas, your guilt, your insecurities, your conflict avoidance, your expectations, and just generally you. And the bottom line is you wish you a Merry Christmas. And the question is, but didn't the wise men bring gold and things like that to the baby? And fancy myrrh and stuff, and that was extravagant. But they were royalty. They didn't have to use their Discover card. And I understand the buts and the tension, and I understand not having the extra money and the stress that comes with that. But the principle still applies. Only gift and give within your means. And don't let some 24-year-old marketing agent tell you that you have to do that, that these things are expected of you. You're going to buy these things for your kids, and quite often they're going to forget what you got them 7 hours later because they're on to the next present. I'm going to tell you that worship is always a better gift. And I don't care what you can or can't afford, worship is always a better gift. And look at the first half of the verse 11. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. It amazes me at this time of year when so many people that normally don't maybe not go to church, that they go to church. And it amazes me that even though people that don't normally go to church during Christmas, that Christians who do know the meaning of Christmas end up prioritizing everything else over Christmas. And I don't really care if it's here or somewhere else. Teach your kids, your family, the importance of worshiping Jesus this Christmas. Not just sitting somewhere eating or drinking too much or arguing because everyone is stressed out. But there is one more gift, even better, that every one of us can afford to give. And we have 3 biblical case studies for this act on Christmas. And last week we talked about the shepherds. And what did the shepherds give? In the end of what we talked about last week, what was it that the shepherds really gave? In Luke 2. The shepherds gave of their time. And so here we're talking about the Magi, and we talked about these expensive gifts, which again aren't inherently bad, especially for them because they could afford it. But what did the Magi give as a gift? They worshipped him, and they gave of their time. They traveled a far, far way just to be with him. So they gave the real gift, and presence is that real gift. Presence is the present. And if you're working extra hours, and if you're doing all these things just to afford these gifts, but your kids don't even get to spend time with you, your wife, your husband don't even get to see you. Stop it. You're giving them something that doesn't even matter. I don't remember gifts that I got on Christmas or birthdays, really. And Regina will tell you, sometimes it probably frustrates her. She'll say, do you remember what I got you last year? And no, I really don't. And it's not a slam. What I remember is who I was with. What I remember is what we did together. Those are the things, that presence. Why do we like hosting larger gatherings? Because it's that chance, that excuse to spend time with more of you. It's that chance to sit down and unwind when our lives, we've got our own laundry list of things to take care of, but everybody in here has a busy to-do list. You have busy lives, you have jobs, you have commitments. And we like to have those gatherings because it's a chance to get everybody together and throw away the other things and just enjoy one another. I don't need presents. I need your presence. And isn't that the very message of Christmas? Emmanuel, which means God with us. And so this year at Christmas, when you're tempted to shoulder that weight of gold, decide now where you're going to focus and what you're going to focus on, who you're going to focus on, not what you wish you had. Are you going to focus on what Jesus has done and the gift that He is? Are you going to focus on how you get to celebrate and reflect with His people that you love? In the essence, are you going to focus, in the theme of the Star Wars thing, on the Death Star or the Christ Star? Did anyone ever notice that in the various graphics, and especially on the one with the words? It was actually pretty clever, and Isaac helped with all those things, that we have the Death Star and we have the little AT-ATs or AT-ATs, whatever. And I just got to say thank you to the team that puts these things together. I'm just humbled by the sacrifice that you give us on a regular basis. And I know that putting all this stuff together can sound easy, and the stuff in the message, okay, don't give what you don't have. But I know the emotion and the expectations, they're wrapped up in it, and I understand the weight. And I know that just because I say the things from up here, that it doesn't change your lives overnight. And I know that we still get wrapped up in those same things, vicious cycles. But it really is that clear. Don't give outside of your means, and keep your focus, your worship, and your eyes on Jesus. And spend more than money with those that you love this Christmas. Spend that time. And as the worship team comes up and we get ready to pray, I want you to focus less on my missteps or my, mistakes or words today. I want you to know that the meaning of what I'm trying to talk about. I want you to hear my heart as it goes out for all of you. And I would ask actually right now that everyone here, that we bow our heads, and everybody bow your head and everybody close your eyes. And because there are a bunch of people, there are a bunch of us here today that are stressed out. And maybe it's because you don't have enough to do what you want. Or maybe you don't have enough, or maybe you do have enough, but you feel like it's this exercise in missing the point. I want you to know that this has zero to do with the gifts that you buy or you don't buy, because that's up to you. And if there's anyone here today that's saying to yourself that you're going to try just a little bit harder to maybe focus a little bit more on Jesus this year, and to focus on Christmas, on the gift of Christ, not the gift that you're giving to someone else, and that you're ready to figure out some creative ways to do that. If that's you, if you're that person who wants to just try something different, if you want to break that cycle and you're not sure how that's going to look and you're kind of stressed out about it, while every head is bowed, while every eye is closed, just slip your hand up there so that I can pray for you, because I know people are dealing. Thank you.